Heads up. The following podcast contains adult language and deals with adult subjects. Keep this in mind as you listen.
On today's show, we're going to tell you about a major shift and fundamental shift.
On with the show.
Hey folks, I'm Grace.
And I'm James. Welcome to Fundamental Shift, the podcast where we explore the major shakeups in our lives, their fault lines, and aftershocks.
Thanks for joining us today. You're in for a real shift show, and we mean that today.
Yep. Extra shifty today.
Extra shifty. So, not shady, just shifty.
Shifty, not shady.
Not shady. So, James, do you want to tell our listeners what in the heck we're talking about? We came, everybody, with this season 3 of Candid Conversations, and this is probably the most candid conversation we're going to have about our podcast for sure. I mean, we've had a lot of candid conversations about our lives and our beautiful responses from our listeners and lots of candid conversations about what we think about the world. But this one is in specific about our podcast. So you want to tell everybody what's going on?
Yeah. So Grace and I had been talking over the holidays and about the upcoming season and the new year. And we reached the conclusion that we've kind of wanted to embrace our identities that we've sort of cut out for ourselves on the podcast, with Grace as the mediocre mystic on the show and with me as what Grace calls the velvet-voiced Zen man of the quieted mind.
100%.
And we've decided that rather than being a deconstruction show, there are a lot of great podcasts out there doing deconstruction, and we have certainly waded into that territory over our first few seasons and done, I think, some really great stuff with that, with bringing people on the show. But going forward in the next season, this year, we want to embrace our identities now, our present selves. And also bring you along on the journey of what has really become our reconstruction. And it's kind of a recurring theme, or it has been in our show, that we're always becoming, right? We're always on the way from here to there, and we live life ultimately in that in-between. So I think going forward, we're going to have Grace as the mediocre mystic for most of the shows, and then I will come in on probably about a monthly basis, and I will do the quieted mind with some selected readings and Dharma talks and meditations. And we'll also still be teaming up together occasionally as we decide to do some fundamental shift stuff as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited that we're maintaining our connection. We could just make a clean break here, and we could say, hey, you go be the velvet voice Zen man, and I'll go be the mediocre mystic, and we could split all this up, and we could have, 2 of everything and just do our own thing. I'm excited that we're staying together and maintaining this connection. And I'm really appreciative of you deferring to me and allowing me to take this mediocre mystic journey. For those who don't know, James already had the quieted mind. He already was doing his meditation and his Dharma talks and some of that stuff on YouTube, and also just online on his website. Strongly encourage you go check those out. So when we got together, we wanted to do something that would help us reconnect about our past, how we met, and how we were moving through life now. Because, y'all, when we were in high school, we did not connect.
Not at all.
We were not friends. That happened for us later in life. And in distance, we still, because of the pandemic, have not been able to get together. No. And it was our true hope to be able to get together and do some podcasting together, and just for our families to meet by now. And we haven't been able to do that. So our connection has been online. It's been, oh, your life looks a little bit like my life. Your posts look a little bit like, mine. And does that mean we've had this similar shift? And that's where a fundamental shift was born. We were just chatting about how do we gather our folks? How do we gather our community in this way? And we felt like we had a different voice because there are many amazing deconstruction podcasts out there. But James and I have been out a long time. And our journey is very much more in the reconstruction area. We batted around the idea of post-deconstruction at one time, but realized, no, you do have a piece of deconstruction always in your life. But our major focus is our reconstruction. And so when we kind of got through some of the stuff that we just felt like was really important that we wanted to address, that were our major issues with fundamentalism, we started to think about, how does this affect my life now? How am I dealing with this now? And I think both of us looked at each other and thought, okay, I'm not sure I think about this every day or even every week. It is a background noise for me in a way. Really what I'm thinking about is my reconstructionism and how I'm living today. And yes, that affects it, right? That fundamentalism affects it. And yes, I have to deal with that from time to time. But primarily, here's where I am. And in a lot of ways, it's a result of the deconstruction we've done. So in a lot of ways, our podcast has really been for people in that zone. And it's just not as sexy. I'm just going to say it's just not as sexy. It's not as sexy as getting on and being firebrand and being like, I fucking hate all of y'all. I fucking hate, Jerry Falwell, whatever. And I mean, we do. Or, Franklin Graham, whoever. Okay, and we do. But our podcast hasn't been about, let's tear all that apart and rant and rave about it. Our podcast has been more about the more cerebral parts of that, I would say, and the more just parts of that, how we're taking them in our reconstruction life now. So as we're learning that our true passion, when we get excited about doing a pod, we just noticed it was like when James was going to do a meditation or I was going to do a mediocre mystic. Those are the episodes we get super excited about. And we'd be so happy for each other. And so we just wanted to play into that, do our passion projects and really show you guys where our passion is. I think that that's really important for us to give that to you, to show that to you, and to offer our vulnerability in that way, where we're saying, here's our passion project, everybody. Hopefully you can join us in that and on that journey. And we just really appreciate you joining us in our first part of this journey where I think, did some really good work.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it was work at times. And it was brutal in the purity and toxic masculinity part. It was brutal for us, but we felt like that was probably our number one thing we wanted to attack. And we did that. And I think we did it well. So here we are, just coming back and saying, here's our passion projects, and we'd like to offer them to you and sort of cap in hand say, we hope you really can get something out of that and see who we are now and find your own encouragement in your own reconstruction journey.
Yeah. And we still want to hear from you as well. So feel free to reach out to Grace or myself about Mediocre Mystic and Quieted Mind and anything in between, really. If there's something that you're curious, what do you think about this or that? Feel free to write to us. And, if we don't write you back directly, maybe we'll talk about it on the show. We still want to be in touch with you. And if there's something you like or don't like, or if you have ideas or suggestions about what we're doing now, then feel free to let us know. We want to know, not just share where we are and where we're going, but we want to know where you are and where you're going.
And we've always been about that, not just our stories, but your stories. I mean, why else do a podcast? We honestly are not trying to just shoot our voices into the ethers. We are an echo cave. We genuinely want to hear from you.
Absolutely. It's always been about connection. So, yeah.
And casseroles. Don't forget casseroles. If you're me.
A little bit about casseroles, yes.
A little bit about casseroles. Sorry, I couldn't get through our last episode not bring up casseroles.
We got an enchilada casserole from Trader Joe's that actually looks really good. So I'm actually kind of excited to get that and cook it and eat it. But yeah.
Well, you can't beat Trader Joe's or an enchiladas. So I'm going to say it's going to be great.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, probably add cheese. But anyway.
Yeah.
The great news is, we also want to share with you, all this is going to stay right in the same feed. You're going to pick us up exactly where you've always picked us up. And one reason we really chose to do that was to maintain this connection and to be sure that everyone can pick us up where you've always been able to pick us up. And especially for those who've been listening faithfully, we're so grateful. We're so incredibly grateful.
Yeah.
We will have a little bit of contact information that's changing up, and we're going to be sharing that in the next few weeks. James has his own stuff for the Quiet Mind. I have my stuff for the Mediocre Mystic. We are going to maintain an archive that will sort of point to Fundamental Shifts past web page, and we'll keep our Facebook page. So if anybody wants to talk to us there, and we will make our posts for these separate shows there as well, again, to maintain that link.
Yeah. So you're not going to lose track of us. Just keep pointed at the same podcast feed that you're pointed at. And, if you want to find out how to contact us, we will be giving you more information about that in the coming weeks, either on the podcast itself or through our social media or our other web presences. So don't worry.
And we'll probably be coming at you with those special shows when it's like a major current event or a holiday. Or we do have one show sort of planned for back to school that we're really excited about because it's going to take us way back there to 1997, the class of 97, with one of our old school teachers, actually. So she's been gracious enough to agree to talk to us online. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Yeah, me too. I think it's going to be fun. But in the meanwhile, we'll be here and we'll be sharing our stories and our meditations. And for me, I will be doing my thing, mindful maraschino picking, just picking those cherries and seeing what, works for me best, unashamedly, and hoping that you'll join me with that and be thinking about what works for you best in that way. And that's honestly, that's kind of my podcast goal, is just to be the every person podcast, right? So, and with James, he's going to be helping us work through our daily life with meditations and seasons with meditations. And I don't know about y'all, but his holiday meditation for me is amazing. I need to listen to it every year, no matter what. So,
appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I'm excited you're going to be coming with those monthly.
Awesome. Yeah, looking forward to it.
So with that, we will say that we are always still going to say, you've heard from us and we want to hear from you. So we're definitely going to be sharing those contact methods with you soon. And in the meantime, shift happens.